Buddha's Dharma, this is not permitted. 1. Out of loving kindness and equanimity towards all beings, it is forbidden to take the life of even an ant, the more so a man. 2. It is forbidden to take a needle and thread, even more so, a valuable object. 3. It is forbidden to touch a courtesan, the more so another man's wife. 4. It is forbidden to lie as a jest, the more so to make a lie. -5. It is forbidden to drink any wine at any time, the more so when it is cold and during sacrifices to the gods. The distance between the heretics and the Buddha's Dharma is like the distance between heaven and earth. The law of the heretics is a generating source for passions. The Buddha's Dharma is the place of destruction of all the passions. This is the great difference. The prajna and the teaching of the Dharma. The Dharma of the Buddhas is immense, like an ocean. According to the dispositions of beings, it is preached in various ways. Sometimes it speaks of existence and sometimes of non-existence, of eternity or of impermanence, of suffering or of bliss, of self or non-self. Sometimes it teaches the diligent practice of the threefold activity of body, speech and mind that embraces all the good dharmas. Sometimes it teaches that all dharmas are inactive by essence. Such are the multiple and various teachings. The ignorant who hear them take them to be a perverse error. But the wise man who enters into the threefold teaching of the Dharma knows that all the Buddha's words are the true Dharma and do not contradict one another. What are these three teachings? 1. The teaching of the Pitaka. 2. The teaching of the Abhidharma. 3. The teaching of emptiness. 1. The teaching of the Pitaka. What is the teaching of the Pitaka, etc.? The Pitaka contains 3,200,000 words. When the Buddha was still in the world, it was composed by Tarkiya Chanyen. After the Buddha's parinirvana, the length of man's life diminished, the strength of his intellect decreased and people were unable to recite the Pitaka fully. Then the individuals who had attained the path composed a summary in 384,000 words. For the person who enters into the Pitaka teaching, there are endless discussions for all kinds of different teachings, such as teaching by implication, teaching by opposition, etc. 1. Teaching by implication. The Buddha in a stanza said, "Avoid all sin, practice the good. Purify one's mind." This is the teaching of the Buddhas. In this stanza, the Buddha should have said, "Purify the mind and the mental events," but he just said, "Purify one's mind." This is because we know that the mental events have already been treated by him. How is that? By having the same characteristic and the same object as the mind. When the Buddha speaks about the four foundations of mindfulness, he does not mean to separate them from four right efforts, the four bases of miraculous power, the five senses and the five powers. How is that? In the four foundations of mindfulness, the four kinds of energies are the four right efforts. The four kinds of concentrations are the four bases of miraculous power. The five kinds of good dharmas are the five senses and the five strengths. Although the Buddha does not mention these associated subjects and only speaks of the four foundations of mindfulness, we should know that he has already dealt with these other subjects. It also happens that, of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha deals with only 1, 2 or 3. Thus the stanza addressed by the bhiksu Maha Singh to Sariputra. My teacher, the noble king, has told. The cause of all dharmas arisen from a cause. And he has also revealed their suppression. In this stanza it is a question only of three truths: truth of suffering, its origin and its destruction, but it should be known that the fourth truth, the truth of the path, is implicitly contained therein, for it is not in contradiction with the preceding ones. In the same way, when a man violates a rule, it is understood that his entire family will undergo the punishment. These are similar things that are called teaching by implication. 2. Teaching by contrast. Sometimes the Buddha speaks only of the four errors. Taking as permanent that which is impermanent, taking as happy that which is painful, taking as self that which is not the self, taking as pure that which is impure. Although on this occasion the Buddha says nothing about the four foundations of mindfulness which are antidotes to the four mistakes. It is necessary to know of what these four foundations of mindfulness consist. If somebody tells you about a remedy, it is that you already know the sickness, or, if somebody speaks to you about sickness, it is that you already know the remedy. If the Buddha speaks of the four foundations of mindfulness, know that he has already spoken of the four mistakes, and that the four mistakes are errors. If he speaks of the four errors, know that he has already spoken about the fetters. Why? Speaking about the root is to already know the branches that come from it. The Buddha also said that the whole world is infected by the three poisons. When he speaks of the three poisons raga, dvesa and moha, we should know that he has already spoken about the eightfold path and its three parts sila, Samadhi and prajna. When he speaks of the three poisons, we should know that he has already treated the poisons of all the passions. Namely, the 5 kinds of thirst that constitute the poison of raga, the 5 kinds of anger that constitute the poison of dvesa, and the 5 kinds of ignorance that constitute the poison of moha. Wrong views, pride and doubt depend on ignorance, and all these fetters are part of the threefold poison. How are they to be destroyed? By means of the eightfold path with its 3 parts sila, Samadhi and prajna. When the Buddha speaks of the eightfold path, we should understand that he has already spoken of the 37 wings of enlightenment. All these subjects treated in this way are called teaching by contrast. The teachings of this type are called teaching of the Pitaka. 2. The teaching of the Abhidharma. What does the teaching of the Abhidharma mean? Sometimes the Buddha himself defined the meaning of the dharmas that he was teaching. Sometimes he was content to give the names and his disciples explained the meaning by all kinds of descriptions. Thus, the Buddha said, if a bhikkhu is unable to correctly understand conditioned dharmas and if he wants to obtain the supreme worldly dharmas, that will be impossible for him. If he has not obtained the supreme worldly dharmas and he wants to enter into the perfect state, that will be impossible for him. If he has not entered into the perfect state and he wants to become a sratapana, a sakadhyagaman, an anagaman or an arhat, that will be impossible for him. On the other hand, if a bhikkhu understands correctly conditioned dharmas, he will have the possibility of obtaining the supreme.